Buses are the backbone of many public transit systems, and I've talked a lot about them. In fact, my most viewed video is a bus video. There is a lot we can learn about buses. What bus types to use for what kinds of service, how to enhance the speed of buses, and how to make the passenger experience on this important transit mode as good as it can be. But buses have a big problem, and it's not that people think buses are for the poor. People think buses are for the poor because in places with poor bus service, people with other options, surprisingly, don't choose to use the buses. No, instead, the problem with buses is that they're really expensive. But why are they so expensive, and how can we solve this problem? The answer rhymes with canes. I'm Reese, and this is RMTransit, a channel about how different transit vehicles change the economics of transit. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and consider supporting the channel on Patreon. So what do I mean when I say that buses are expensive? Well, the cost of most things for transit systems can be broken into operating costs and capital costs. Those are the costs to run a system and to build and buy new equipment. And buses are actually expensive from both angles. On one hand, buses are actually expensive to buy. If you look at the typical hybrid bus in North America with a cost of around $700,000 and the capacity to move 50 to 70 people, and compare that to the pretty expensive new subway cars being deployed in New York City, which can move 240 passengers and cost about $2.7 million per car, you realize that the cost per passenger capacity is already significantly higher with a bus than with a train car. And trains last much longer than buses. The typical bus lasts 12 to 15 years in service in North America. Trains typically last more than 30 years, and trains in cities like Paris, London, and New York are often over 40 or sometimes even 50 years old. That means that the cost per passenger capacity of buses is often going to be many times that of trains. But arguably even more significant is that buses are very expensive to operate. One of the most expensive elements of running a transit system is people, who need to be well paid because working in transportation is hard and often comes with odd shifts and stressful situations, and transit agencies need a lot of staff. That means that if each staff member can move more people, then the transit system can be more cost effective, as well as growing capacity while more slowly growing headcount. And that's all on top of the fact that transit agencies around the world are struggling to recruit new employees. Of course, this is because trains let you move more people per operator. A big train is basically unbeatable in its people moving efficiency. And that's because a train isn't just a single train car, but often 6, 8, or even 10 or more. That lets one or sometimes two staff members on a train move thousands of passengers, as opposed to maybe 100 on an articulated bus. That's a bendy boy. And while I do talk a lot about the advantages of technologies like light metro on this channel, bigger trains do have some advantages. For one, the capacity to run more trains is always limited. A metro can move around 40 trains per hour, and an RER-type heavy rail system can often get up to around 30. But ultimately, the capacity of each train matters a lot in this equation. Capacity is literally just trains per hour times capacity per train. And especially on RERs and S-Bahn tunnels, which have huge stations, you need to move a ton of people for the cost to make sense. And to move a ton of people, you can't just have frequent trains, you also need big trains. At the same time, making a system's trains bigger before you increase frequency or in lockstep with it lets you grow capacity more efficiently without similarly growing the number of people you need to actually run the trains. The only reason that automated light metro systems like those you see in small French cities, as well as Vancouver, work is that there's a limited cost advantage to running larger trains when you don't have to pay an operator to operate every single one of them, thus making maxing out the frequency the natural decision. And of course, there's the obvious stuff. Bigger trains means more economies of scale over a bigger fleet, making them only more cost effective on a per passenger basis. But big trains aren't all good. There is a limit. Train lengths on urban services tend to max out at around 12 cars or around 250 meters, as you'll see on the RER, various S-Bahns, Crossrail, Thameslink, and urban services in Japanese cities. The thing is that big trains just don't accelerate as quickly even if they're EMUs. And they also naturally take more time to pass through junctions and other sections of line, which means that as trains get bigger and bigger, the practical frequency that they can operate at goes down and down, creating a true maximum where you have maximum train frequency and maximum per train capacity. But the economics are pretty undeniable. In fact, one of the historic benefits of trams have been their ability to move more passengers for every operator. A big reason that Toronto kept its streetcars is that replacing them with buses would mean hiring 3 times as many drivers. Now, to try to fight this, articulated and even bi-articulated buses have come onto the scene to try to increase the capacity that a single bus driver can move. And with up to around 200 people per bus, you actually get pretty close to tram capacities on some of these vehicles, but you're nowhere near what urban trains can deliver. Of course, automation is another important consideration. Buses can't be automated, but train automation is really common, and even on the very large high-capacity systems like Thameslink route in London, the Yamanote line in Tokyo, and the Copenhagen S-Tog, ATO or automatic train operation systems are being tested to reduce or perhaps someday eliminate staffing on these large regional-style trains. While there are some automated shuttles out there like the Park Shuttle in the Netherlands, the truth is that we're a long way from a generalized automated bus, even if it would be completely revolutionary for transit. Remember, we aren't likely to get automated buses before automated cars, and automated cars have been 5 years away for the last 20 years. So if a transit system can shift to moving more and more of its passengers by rail, it can run more efficiently, devoting less capital funding to replacing old buses and trains and spending that on things like accessibility and station improvements, as well as expansion projects that can further reduce the cost of delivering transit by creating more rail routes. This is important because the cost of delivering transit is only going up, as population growth isn't quite what it used to be. This all has a huge impact on operations. When the cost of providing service is lower, you naturally provide more service. And transit systems that provide more service, get more riders, provide better trips, and grow. In many ways, the efficient operations of rail systems protect you from the service cuts that you might see with buses. And I think it's worth highlighting that while tram systems the world over have been ripped out in the past, the same isn't really true for subways. They're just really cost effective. Now, of course, there is the cost of infrastructure. You can't run trains without tracks and often tunnels. But that cost is largely fixed, and so as you scale your transit system up to move more and more people, the cost of that infrastructure is actually surprisingly low, especially if you have multiple lines to spread the cost of operations and maintenance over. And so trains offer something beyond just the ability to excite rail fans or move you across the city faster than anything else. They help fundamentally improve the finances of public transport, allowing cities to run more service, more efficiently, and more sustainably. A transit system with lots of trains is cool, but it's also resilient, and that's really important. Thanks for watching.